Hi there, this is Josh from Literary Gladiators, and today I'm here with a book review. The book that I'm going to be reviewing is one that was selected based off of my TBR die roll, and it was the very first one that I rolled based off of the number that corresponded with the book under that number. But the book that I'm going to be reviewing today is A Cheesemonger's History of the British Isles by Ned Palmer. Palmer himself is a successful up-and-coming cheesemaker, and you see a lot of his celebration and his admiration of those that made cheese before him. But this is a work of nonfiction that combines the history of cheese, applying British history and how it connected to cheese, the mechanics of cheese making, and Palmer also incorporates his own individual memoir. To me, it played very much like an episode of Unwrapped, where you get a history of the food item or the brand that's being discussed, and then you also get a sense of the physical creation of that item. And in this case, it's the cheese of Britain. He talks about the origins, even though you continue to get that sense of Palmer's he constantly is interjecting his own individual thoughts. It's not it plays much more like a memoir than it does history, because he's constantly interjecting. Thus, it has a more subjective voice to it. But he does bring about the alleged origins and how cheese dates back to at least 6500 BC, and how when it was created, humans were not able to digest milk and dairy, but cheese allegedly was the first step toward being able to digest it, and also was a major step toward a transition from hunting and gathering to farming. Palmer does make a great deal of references, some of which I had a great idea about, others not so much. For instance, it does make reference to the fact that Polyphemus, who was the Cyclops in Homer's The Odyssey, he was a cheesemaker, and a pretty good one at that. He was very thorough and organized and specific as far as his methods were concerned. They make reference to Daniel Defoe and his admiration for Stilton cheese. Funny enough, it does not make any reference to G.K. Chesterton's sonnet to a Stilton cheese, but there are references to the cheese shop sketch from Monty Python's Flying Circus, which Palmer makes note to the fact that it was pretty accurate for that time, in a strange way, because a lot of British cheese became scarce throughout its history, be it through not standing out as far as popularity was concerned, rationing during World War II. The 70s was a bit of a bleak time for British cheese, but it is beginning to make its way back, and that leads me to a reference that I was really keeping an eye on when I saw Wensleydale, and how that is Wallace of Wallace and Gromit's favorite cheese. And he does make mention to that, and the fact that Wallace's admiration for Wensleydale really spiked up the interest and the demand and the popularity of the cheese. There's also references to how the impact that cheese had on providing energy for the soldiers during war, the fact that the Margaret Thatcher tenure, when she was Prime Minister, led to the MMB creating their own new cheese, using up the surplus milk, which resulted in Limeswald, which for export was called Westminster Blue. And then it also provides background information of as much history that can be applied to each of these different types of cheese. I did read the history of Stilton cheese and its origins in an alternate book, which on the topic of that, I actually own 3 of the books that Ned Palmer cited and incorporated into this history and memoir of his. He referred to Cheese and Culture, A History of Cheese and Its Place in Western Civilization, by Paul S. Keinstedt. He referred to the World Cheese Book, put together by Editor-in-Chief Juliet Harbut. And he also referred to Cheddar Gorge, a book of English cheeses, which was put together by Sir John Squire. He did refer to some books about cheese that I would like to look into a little bit more and incorporate into my collection. But I think as far as reference is concerned, I think that those books would be better as far as referring to general information. But Cheesemonger's History of the British Isles was a delight, and it was fun to hear about Ned Palmer's experiences, his encounters, interacting with the different cheesemakers. I liked learning about each of the methods. I would like to refer to this a little bit more as far as specifics that contrast the different methods of cheese making and how you get one style of cheese as opposed to the other, the way that you handle the curds, handle the whey, handle the heating process, and incorporate and the use of rennet and whatnot. Even though it's a history that does its best to be chronologically accurate and incorporate a relevant cheese for each chapter, it does hop around consistently, which it's very much like an unedited conversation, which there's nothing wrong with that. I think that Palmer even acknowledges the fact that he digresses frequently, but I think that you would probably want to look elsewhere if you're looking simply for organized information about specific kinds of cheese that you would want to assist with your own individual experience. But if you want to be engaged, then this is a good book. The other thing to keep in mind is his cheese recommendations are very specific. If you live in Britain, you shouldn't have as much of an issue, but it would be a challenge for someone like me to be able to get my hands on a lot of these kinds of cheese, because they are very specific, and there's some that are even unpasteurized, which in many cases the cheese has to be pasteurized in order for you to be able to acquire it. But It's just a matter of whether or not someone wants to enjoy something with the possible risk. But it's only a possibility. After reading this, I would like to learn more about British cheese. I've come across British cheese during my expeditions of going to different cheese shops, but just as he made mention to, the Caerphilly, the one I recognize is the white crumbly kind, as opposed to the kind that made him fall in love with wanting to delve into a life of cheese and cheese making. But it also piqued my interest as far as the mechanics of cheese making are concerned, and creating different kinds of cheese and what makes each cheese different from one another. I think that the best way to sum this book up is that it was a fun book to read, one that was informative about the cheese of Britain, the cheese makers of Britain, and the history and mechanics of cheese making from the lens of somebody from Britain. I'm giving this 4 stars out of 5. I think that it was a enjoyable read, and one that I would encourage people to check out if they want to listen to a good story and also pick up some good information as well. Thank you for tuning into this video. I hope you check out some more videos from our channel. If you like what you see, please support our channel on Patreon, for the money that we make will allow us to provide you, the viewer, with even more great content. For now, and as always, I encourage you to keep reading.